Hello, Culture Matters podcast. I am excited to introduce you to our guest. Before I do that, here is a quote just for this episode. Is it one person's responsibility to maintain a relationship, or should both parties share that responsibility? Kevin Fink, our guest today, friend of the Culture Matters podcast, introduced to me by somebody we love here on the Culture Matters podcast, the one and only Christopher Ty, who goes way back to another beloved friend on the Culture Matters podcast, the one and only Tony Capullo, always connecting the dots. But our guest today here has been an advisor, a mentor, a trainer for well over 2 decades, not only in the insurance and financial advisory as a CFP, but as the top Life Wizard trainer, director of Life Wizard training for those in and outside of the financial services industry, background in NLP and many other personal development, educational backgrounds. Kevin Fink was introduced by, like I said, Chris Ty. If you haven't listened to his episode in the Culture Matters podcast, you got to go check those out after our show. And thanks for coming on the show and making time. I'm excited to learn about life wizardry. I feel like a wizard sometimes. I'd
Yeah,
like to
it's
be more one.
well, I'm grateful to be here. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for Chris for making the introduction.
One thing I'm very curious about is the relationship in your mind that emotions plays with finances.
Yeah,
For because all of our listeners have a degree of responsibility around their finances, whether they realize or not, right? Entrepreneurs, executives,
yep,
speakers, trainers. So yeah, what are your thoughts on, because you've studied the brain a lot,
yeah,
the relationship between emotions and finance?
absolutely. So as you mentioned, I've been in the financial services business for this going on my 20. This is my 29th year. 25 of those as a certified financial planner.
Wow.
So I've helped hundreds of people with their financial goals and creating financial stability. And what I've wondered about is why most people who are doing what they are arguably supposed to be doing, what, the things that we're taught to do and what we're told this is what we're supposed to do, why most people end up not wealthy. And that includes me. And what I've discovered in the work that I've done through NLP and personal growth is that we have limiting beliefs and emotional baggage around money that many times we have no idea is even there. It comes from things we observed when we were children. If you saw a mom crying about an unpaid bill, or her dad, screaming about the fact that, there were money struggles, that imprinted you as a child. And psychology has shown that that actually has an impact on our further money decisions later in life. And the problem is that that stuff is all stored in our unconscious mind. We don't even realize that it's there. So we get money, money comes to us, but it seems like no matter how much we earn, it's either hard to hold on to or it's never enough, right? And then we wonder what the hell happened. Where'd all the money go? I've been doing all the stuff that I've been told I should do. Where's all the money? And the issue is that it's in our unconscious mind, these limiting beliefs and this emotional baggage that we have, until we really begin to understand and dig that stuff out and look at, is that really true for me? Is that belief system benefiting me? Where does it even come from, before we can actually handle and figure out what to do with our money? And in my case, I'm not I'm a little embarrassed to say it, right? But it's my truth. It's my story. I've blown through two amounts of money that most people would consider life changing amounts of money, from two inheritances. One that I received when my mom passed, and one that we got when my wife's mom passed. In both cases, it was over $200,000. And while we used it at the time, we paid off some bills, and we had a dream destination wedding, and we did some
Wow.
upgrades to the house that we enjoyed. Right. Um, at the end of the day, sitting there in my kitchen, looking at my bank account, nothing there. Where did it all go? What happened? I'm supposed to be the expert. I've been doing this for 30 years, right? I'm the expert. What's going on? What the hell's wrong with me? And it wasn't until I began to look at my limiting beliefs and what did I believe about money and where did that come from, and do some work with a coach to dig out what is the root problem here. And what I came to understand was that because of the experiences I had as a kid, um, I didn't believe I was worthy of having money or having nice things. And that belief system was so deeply rooted. If you'd have asked me, are you worthy of money? Are you worthy of wealth? I'd have said, hell yes, I am. Consciously, yeah, I believe that. But it was so deeply buried in my unconscious that it didn't matter what I was consciously saying. 95% of our behaviors are stored in our unconscious mind. We only spend as human beings about 5% of our time in conscious thought. Everything else happens in the unconscious mind. And so the unconscious mind runs everything. It runs all of our systems. It breathes for us. It pumps our blood. It takes care of things that we don't need to consciously think about. And unfortunately, how we handle money is one of those things that it also has a huge impact on. And so it took me to do the work, right? To identify what are my limiting beliefs, and then understand how do I get rid of those, right? How do I change those beliefs? And that's where things like neuroplasticity, the ability to rewire our brain, comes in. I like to think of decisions and the way our brain works is, think of it like a hiking trail, right? If you hike the same trail over and over and over again, eventually the grass gets worn down and you can see the trail. Well, the first time you go to strike out a new trail, you got to walk over it a bunch of times before it becomes a new trail. And that's literally how our brain works as well. The behaviors that we repeat over and over and over, it's like creating that trail. Those grooves are really deep in our brain. And so that's those limiting beliefs, right? That baggage, that's the
Mm.
trail that's been worn down over time. And so in order to make a change, we have to practice those new beliefs. We have to get rid of the old and then forge a new path. And so that's how it works.
Do you think that part of the inherent value of having that third party work with us around our let's just say for now the vertical of
Yeah,
the finance,
yeah,
part of the value of that relationship could come as a consequence of the fact that this is how the brain works. We
yeah,
might be stuck within our own
absolutely.
paradigm as a consequence of things that happen in
Yep.
our earlier. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So my
Because John Bogle keeps telling me to do it all myself.
yeah, no, we can't do it ourselves. I mean, there's for everything that we know, there's an
The
equal
investing,
amount
I
that
mean,
we
right?
don't
For
know.
I'm sorry, the audience, I might have lost them. John Bogle, the Bogleheads, invest your own money in
Yeah,
the
right.
in the, in the vanguards.
Yeah,
They
right. You
told
should
me
do
to do
all.
it alone. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the Dave Ramsey's. I call them the financial pornographers. Um, the stuff they're putting out there is financial
They're like the
pornography.
pornographers.
Yeah, it's financial entertainers, financial pornographers. So it's not about that you can't do your own money investing and money things. A lot of people do, and as it relates to what I'm talking about, I think it's imperative that we have a third party that can help us see what we can't see. We all have blind spots, right? And that's really what this becomes. So my coach, he's actually a former NFL player. He won the Super Bowl back in 99, I think, or 2001 with the Steelers. And he uses a great analogy. He said, in our lives, it's like being on the line of scrimmage. So imagine a football game. You're in the game, you're on the line of scrimmage. What you can see is directly what's in front of you. You can see the player in front of you, you can see the grass, you can see the ball. You're on the line of scrimmage. But the coach, there's a reason they put the coach up in the press box, because the coach can see the whole field. The coach can see things that the players can't see. And that's really the purpose of having that third party, is that they can see what we can't. And they can help point out to us, like, okay, so on that play you were supposed to go left, but you went right. Right. Or what you didn't see was the linebacker was inching up because all you could see was right in front of you. So having that third party helping you see and understanding parts of the game that maybe you don't understand. You understand your part, but you don't necessarily understand all the parts. That's really where that third party, that coach, comes into play.
Who do you, is it a who, was it a who, or was it something as a consequence of this development over the years taught you to be honest?
Yeah. So I took
And the reason
so
I
I've
ask
always
that is because you didn't have to say what you said at the
no,
beginning.
no,
Like a lot of people that come on the show, I think I've noticed when they don't tell the full story.
yeah. You know, so a couple things there. Lewis Howes wrote a great book called The Mask of Masculinity. If you haven't read that, check that book out. As men, we're taught a lot of stuff about how men should be, and it's not, we shouldn't show emotion, and all the things that we're taught about what it means to be a man. And he does a great job in that book of talking about how to remove those masks, because that's really all they are. They're just masks. And I've always been interested in my own personal growth. And in about 2007, so I live here in Houston, and I was in a client's office down in South Houston. He was on the phone, and I was looking around his office, and I saw up on the wall he had this shadow box. And inside the shadow box, there were a couple certificates, a broken piece of wood, and laying on the bottom of the shadow box was a 4-inch rubber cockroach laying on its back. So when he got off the phone, I said, Randy, dude, what's the deal with the cockroach? And he said, I'm so glad you asked. He said, it's there to remind me of this leadership class that I took. And he said, it had an impact on me. It had such an impact on me. It changed my life after 4 days. And so much so that I think you would love it and you should go do it. And so I did. And it changed my life, and it changed how I look at my life. It changed how I show up in my life. It changed everything about my relationships with my family and my spouse, and my business relationships. And like most things in life, Jay, what I've figured out is that if I want to get really good at something, I volunteer to teach it to somebody else. Because you want to get up in front of somebody and teach them something, you better know what you're talking about. And that was always my motivation, to dig in and say, okay, how do I get the most out of this? Let me offer to teach it to someone else. So I became a trainer with that company. And one of the things that we believe is that there are 7 key messages as it relates to leadership, and this actually ties into your whole culture thing, right? Leaders, there's so many books written about leadership, effective leadership, and our company is called High Five Leadership that I work with, and our 7 key messages. One of them is vulnerability is the new strength. We've been taught, again, as men, that showing our emotions and being vulnerable is a weakness, and nothing could be further than the truth. Because in order to get vulnerable, being vulnerable requires a tremendous amount of courage. It requires a lot more courage to take off the mask and tell the truth and put your shit out there than it does to hide behind the mask. And so in my effort to practice what I teach, I have learned that vulnerability is really a strength. And again, to go back to your whole culture perspective, as it relates to relationships, what comes first in a relationship, trust or transparency? What do you think?
From whose point of view?
So if I want to create a relationship with you, right, and I meet you and I want to build a relationship, from your perspective, what needs to be there first, trust or transparency, in order for us to create an effective relationship? It's kind of a chicken or egg, but I have a perspective on it.
Well, when I was preparing, I came to an assumption that you were a bit of a philosopher. So I feel like I'm getting one of Zeno's paradoxes right now. What do you
When
think?
you want to create a new relationship with someone, what do you need from them? Do you need to just trust them first, or do you need them to be transparent with you before you'll trust them? What comes first in that relationship for you? Trust or transparency? There's no wrong answer. I'll tell you what I think our answer is and why we think it's the right answer, but it's not really a right or wrong. What does your gut tell you the
What
answer
is?
is?
I don't know.
Okay. So I would offer, so usually what we hear is someone will say transparency is more important. And I'll say, why is transparency more important? Because they say, in order for me to trust someone, I want them to be transparent first, right? I want them to be vulnerable. And if they can get vulnerable, well, then I can trust them. So they would say transparency needs to happen first. Others would say, well, I need to have trust in them, right? I need to trust them. And once I trust them, then they feel like they can get transparent because we have this trust. Well, from our perspective, from a
Isn't that the
leadership
same
perspective,
thing?
from a leadership perspective,
Implicitly, right?
it's really who is the focus on. Most people focus on the other person. And what we would suggest is that trust comes first, but the trust is in myself. I have to trust myself to let my walls down, to become transparent first. And when I have the courage to let my wall down and to be transparent, to be vulnerable with you, that then is going to allow you to see that. It's going to allow you to trust me, and it's going to allow you to then drop your walls and be transparent with me. And now we can really build authentic trust in a relationship versus what most people have, which is just a very surface level, you know, a relationship where both are waiting for the other to be transparent first, and instead what you have is a very shallow relationship.
So if I understand you correctly, the general answer is that someone may say for the counterpart to be transparent, or another party may say, I have to trust them. And the realization in that is that a natural impulse is for the individual to be thinking through the other as opposed to themselves. And
Correct.
you're recommending, hold on, take a step back and look in the mirror, trust in yourself so you can trust in others.
That's exactly right. Trusting yourself to get vulnerable. So our set, and I'll just toss this out there because again, your podcast is called Culture Matters, and I would agree a billion% that culture trumps everything in an organization, and culture is created by leadership. So our 7 key messages of leadership are the following. The first is I go first. Leaders go first, meaning that it's not okay for me to wait and assume that somebody else is going to do it. I'm going to show it. I'm going to take action. So I go first. The second one is um, I am personally responsible. So the buck stops here, right? If I'm not willing to accept personal responsibility for everything that happens inside my organization or in my own life, then what I'm doing is I'm playing the blame game and looking for someone else to blame it on, which is pervasive in our society today. Look around, no one's willing to take any personal responsibility. Politicians, everybody's pointing the finger, it's their fault. Whose fault is it? It's never my fault. It's always somebody else's fault. Well, that's why we're in such a cluster as we are, because there's no personal responsibility. So I go first. I am personally responsible. I write my positive stories is another one. So excuse me, in life, most people would think that positive and negative are opposites. And I would submit that they are actually two sides of the same coin, because you cannot have one without the other. They are a comparison. You can't identify something as being negative unless you have something positive to compare it to, and vice versa. You can't say something's positive unless you have a negative thing to compare it to. So when you look around and everybody's focused on negative and all the negative shit that's going on in the world, my question would be, what are you focused on? Because every time negative shows up, positive's available. So if I'm in charge of my own story, because let's face it, everything in life is a story. As human beings, we communicate through story all the time. Our language is all about telling stories. So if I'm going to write a story about what's going on, I'm going to write a positive story. Now, that doesn't mean that circumstances don't come up in life that I perceive as, well, that's negative, right? Or that's hurtful, or it's quote unquote bad. Well, it it just is. It's not good or bad. It just is. And how I perceive it and what I choose to do with it, that's on me. Because again, if I'm not accepting personal responsibility for that, then I'm just going to look for who can I blame for my circumstances in life. So I write my own stories and I choose to write positive ones. I already shared vulnerability is the new strong, right? Vulnerability is not weakness. Vulnerability is strength. So I go first. I write my positive stories. I'm personally responsible. Vulnerability is strength. Um, I'm going off memory here. Clearly, I hadn't done it for a little while. I choose joy, right? So I get to choose. Oh, I am at choice. That's another one. I'm at choice. At all points in life, you're at choice. You can make choices. No one forces us to do anything. Now, we get put in sometimes in situations where we feel like the choices that we have to choose from are not great, and I'm still at choice, right? So I'm at choice. I choose joy. I'm personally responsible. That's a choice. I go first. That's a choice. Vulnerability is strength. That's a choice. I write my positive stories. That's a choice, right? And the last one, oh, come on, Kevin, pull out the seventh one. It's going to be, when I think about it, I've got a binder sitting over here on the side. I'm thinking about going to grab it because it's escaping my mind right now. I'm going to do it. Hang on. Oh, duh. And I raise my vibe. I raise my vibe. Everything in life is vibration, right? So I can show up. I get to choose how I show up in the world. Am I going to show up as a bump on a log? Am I going to show up, with low energy and talk to you in a hey Jay, it's really great to be on your show today, man. I'm so excited. No, man, you know. But yeah, I choose. I raise my vibe because it's my choice. How am I showing up? Now, again, I'm not suggesting that shit doesn't happen in our lives, and and I don't have pressure, and I don't get depressed, and right. But with awareness comes clarity, and with clarity comes new opportunities to make different choices. So it really all comes back. So that's a really long way of answering your short question of, you know, how do I just show up and tell my truth and kind of put my dirty laundry out there? Well, it comes from all those. It's my choice. Why am I doing it? What's my intention? Why would I tell somebody that I've blown through over $400,000 of inheritances with very little to show for it? Because it can help other people. And what I've learned through my own experience, I want to share with others because look, this life, this journey that we are on, as far as we know, this is the only shot we get. It's not a dress rehearsal. We're not practicing for the next time. And even if you believe in reincarnation, you're not coming back as you now. You're going to come back as a tree frog or a blade of grass or something like that. So, the journey along the way needs to be a pleasant one, and it's okay. There's a lot of negative stuff out there. There's a lot of unhappy people. And I believe that we could use a whole lot more love and kindness in our world. And if by sharing my story, it helps anybody, then that's a net gain for me. And and I don't care what you think of me, right? We so many people are worried about, well, how am I going to be perceived? You're a certified financial planner. You're supposed to be good with money. I am good with money. I can tell you exactly what to do, right? But what I also know is that if we don't get rid of the limiting beliefs and emotional baggage you've got around money, it doesn't matter what I tell you, your behavior is going to affect what you ultimately have. So that's why I do what I do.
In your experience working alongside those that have uh, retired well or set themselves up for success, what are some of the values that you've seen them model in their behavior? Because
Uh,
you've been watching people this whole
sure.
time and
Yeah, sure.
telling them the truth. Clearly, if you tell the truth,
Yeah.
what have you seen of those that have been most successful?
Yeah. It's a great question.
And by the way, I don't care. I've never met one of my trainers on Zoom. I do. He doesn't look heavy, but if he was 700 pounds and if it worked, I'm not focused on him.
Yeah.
Uh, maybe he has a six pack and I'm still heavy.
Right.
But so I just as a third party, so like what have you seen from the clients of what so our listeners can draw on what values can I model to
Yeah.
build my wealth and my success 40 years from now?
Yeah. That's a great question. And
And Abraham Lincoln said, I learn from everyone I meet. Usually it's what not to do.
right. Yeah.
Like
The
I
old,
love Honest Abe. Honest Abe. There you go. I don't know.
yeah, the old lemming, watching the lemmings, watch what everybody else is doing and then do the opposite.
Yeah, because you're clearly a great student and teacher. So like, well, what are some of the values that you've seen clients model? Because we're all clients of our money, whether we realize or not, right?
Yeah, for sure. I would say that there's at least two, probably three or four. The ones that immediately come to mind, gratitude, um, gratitude. So again, think about what I talked about vibrations. When we think about values, our values, everything in life is vibrations, right? It's energy, and energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So energy just transfers from one place to another. So values have energy, emotions have energy. So the value of gratitude, when you are feeling grateful about something, I mean, when you are really truly grateful for something, is the energy of gratitude a high vibration energy or is it a low vibration, you think of it as excitement. Excitement a high vibration? When you're excited, are you vibrating high or are you like, I'm so excited right now? I just can't tell you how excited I am. It's a high vibration. It so even when I think about it, right, I'm so grateful, right? Your body language. I'm so grateful to be on your podcast right now. I am so grateful that Chris introduced me to you, right? You can see my energy is high. So positive, high energy values and vibrations, things like love, gratitude, forgiveness, right? Those are high vibration emotions and values versus things like what would be a low energy, not value, but emotion, depression, fear, anxiety, anger. Those are low vibrations. So people who are successful with money, the things that they do tend to be they tend to value high vibration emotions like gratitude, like love, not love of things, but love of people, usually. So usually the people who are successful with money, they're successful because there's somebody in their life that money is going to benefit, whether it's directly in their family or they're going to use it in some way to benefit others, right? So a sense of charity, right? I can't tell you how many people, I look at tax returns all the time as I'm working with clients, and people making three, four, $500,000 a year, and I look on their Schedule C to see how much they give away, $1,000, $2,000, and I'm like, you you ain't gonna make it, dude. I don't care how much money you're making. And usually those people, while even though they make a lot of money, when I look at their assets, when I look at their balance sheet, they don't have a lot because they're spending it on things like lifestyle. It's all going out. And many times, believe it or not, those people also have credit card debt, right? Because again, they haven't really looked deep into what does money mean for me? Why do I need this money? What's the purpose of this money? Is it to have the big house and the fancy cars and the fancy wristwatch and to show it off? Look how successful I am. The book now it's been around for probably 40 years now. The Millionaire Next Door. Have you ever read that book?
Stanley, Dr. Stanley.
Uh-huh. Yeah, Millionaire Next Door. So they did a phenomenal study about true millionaires versus people who you think would have a lot of money. And in being in Texas, I like the phrase that he used. Most people are big hat, no cattle, right?
Do you think there's a connection with an individual's ability or yeah, ability to spend unearned capital, so that's credit,
Mhm.
and yeah, ability to spend or desire to spend unearned capital and the percentage or the degree by which they're giving giving their capital as a percentage of their income. So, example, the person that's giving 1,000,
Mhm.
that's 0.20% of 500K,
Right.
right? In different religious texts, it'll say give a tithe 10% or
10%, whatever.
20% or
Right.
so that's clearly right an example, it's much smaller than
Yep.
10%. And the consuming of the access to credit, the access to capital. I said unearned, but in a sense, there's a degree of earning if the data is saying that past behavior dictates I might replenish it, I guess. So there's a degree of earning. You've earned the
Yeah.
ability to get the capital, the credit. So I maybe that's not the right way to phrase it, but do you
Yeah.
think there's a connection? That's my first question is there do you think there's a connection with how much I give and how much I'm willing to spend of what I haven't that isn't fully mine?
I don't know that. So I've never thought of it
It's
that
just
way.
this random thought. I'm
Yeah.
not.
I don't know if so. I'm gonna answer it a little differently from the perspective that I think makes the most sense. And to me, it's more about what does that person truly value and what does money mean to them? What is their belief system around money? Why do they why do you believe that if you make $500,000 a year, why do you believe that it's only important to give away point 0.2, 0.02 or 0.2%? Versus what is your belief system that says I need to yeah, I got to pay my taxes and then whatever's left, that's for me and that's for my lifestyle. What's the belief system and what, because I promise you, contained in that belief system is a lot of unconscious choice that you are not in control of, that has been there since you were 4 years old. You saw your mom crying in the bathroom or crying in the kitchen because a bill didn't get paid or because she couldn't put bread on the table that week or whatever it was. And so, and it's not that these are bad people, right? Now, yeah, there's some shitty people out there that are just greedy, you
Well,
know.
isn't that the thesis of some of these teachers of these horrific atrocities throughout the world? Well, there weren't bad people. It was the banality of evil. Hannah Arendt. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's about the Third
No.
Reich. Like it's the averageness of evil.
Yeah, no, I've not heard of that.
Oh,
And
I
yeah,
hope
there's
that thought though doesn't make the audience think that I'm. That's not the most kind connection there, I guess, but
yeah,
the
but yeah,
bad.
I think there are some. I think there, just statistically, there are going to be some just shitty people, right? There are just going to be some evil people that are born, but I think again, most people are not that. I think most people, we've probably talked more philosophy in the last 40 minutes than most people ever think about in their lives outside of some class they were forced to take in high school, right? Because
Amen.
most people are not thinking, they're not thinking, period. They're existing, right? They're going through the motions, wash, rinse, and repeat. They don't read books, they don't pay attention, they just go through life honestly just waiting to die, right? They let life happen to them instead of making life happen because of them.
Mm.
And and again, this is not a judgment on anyone.
Well, how do we change that? Right. So someone listening
Well,
to this is saying, that's me.
yeah. And so
Help me.
it starts right there. It starts with that awareness that, look, I'm going through life, and every morning when I wake up, it feels like I just go through the same motions all day. And then I go to, I get up, I brush my teeth, I take a shower, I eat breakfast, I get in the car, I drive to work, I do my work, I come home, I go to the gym, I come home, I eat dinner, I say hi to my kids, I put them to bed, I kiss my wife, I go to sleep, and tomorrow I get up and I do the same thing until I die. That's a lot of people. They don't think of it like that, but that's what they're doing. And at some point, your conscious brain goes, this is it. This is this is it. This is what I got. WTF? What? And so it's that moment when they go, man, I want more. I want this is not what I want. It's at that moment that now they have become aware of something. I like to say that most people are just going through life asleep. And it's not until they either become awakened to something because of an event or something that happens, usually somebody says something or something happens in their life, and it shakes them for a second. It opens their eyes and they go, holy shit, wow, something just happened. And now, once you know that there's another way, you can never go back to sleep. You can only pretend to go back to sleep. So how do you get out of it? It starts with that awareness, like, man, I'm not happy with where things are. And where things are may be really great. It doesn't mean, you're destitute and you're a homeless person living under a bridge. You could have a very nice, comfortable life, but it feels unfulfilled. And so with that awareness, it is the spark that somebody says, okay, what else is possible? And what do I need to do? And what can I do? But it has to be the willingness to look in the mirror, because otherwise we're looking to those external forces, those external circumstances to blame as to why my situation is like this. No, I am in control. I am personally responsible. I am at choice. All those things that we talked about. And it applies, as you can see, it applies both in our personal lives as well as in our businesses. So if I'm the leader of a business, it's the exact same thing. I'm responsible for these people. I'm responsible for this culture. Am I truly building a culture within my organization where people can accept responsibility for their roles? Or am I just standing over them like a taskmaster, making sure, because I don't trust them, right? And so I got to micromanage everything. I mean, that's what culture's all about, but it applies to our personal life too.
Are you or have you ever been a fan of Lord of the Rings?
Love Lord of the Rings.
Are you Gandalf?
Maybe the White Wizard, yeah, the Life Wizard. We were when we were talking before starting today. I said, I'll share with you where the Life Wizard, the whole thing came from. So I was working with a coaching client a couple years ago who was, she's a really smart person. She's a general manager of a collision repair business, and I love her to death. And she was just talking to me about her situation, and so I was helping her understand some of this stuff, and we got done after, I don't know, one or two sessions, and she just stopped and she went, dude, you're like a life wizard. I mean, that shit worked like magic. And she said, I don't know what you did. I said, I didn't really do anything. I just talked to you. Right. And she's like, well, whatever you did, it worked. And it was like magic. You're like some sort of life wizard. And that's where it stuck.
Oh.
Right. But it's just, it's having the ability to be up in the press box, to go back to my coach's analogy. Right. Everybody is on the line of scrimmage of their life. They're here. Right. They see what's right in front of them, day to day, moment to moment. Sometimes they may be willing to take a step back and maybe look out, lift their head up and at least look at the whole line of scrimmage, right? Or look up and see what are the defensive backs doing. But it's rare that they get up in the press box and they look at the whole field. What's the offense doing? What's the defense doing? What's the score? What's the wind doing? That's the job of the coach. That's the person up in the press box. And I think everyone can benefit from having a Gandalf or having, a coach in their life that can see the things that are outside. It's just blind spots. We all have them, right? It's not that it doesn't exist. It's just it's not in our awareness at all. It's in our blind spot. And until we have someone in our life that we can truly trust to point out to us the things that are in our blind spots, that we will even be able to open up and see them. Because if that trusted relation, so think about it, somebody that you don't know says, hey, Jay, you're screwing up over here in this area of your life. Whatever, dude. Whatever. Now, they may be offering you some gold, right? But because you have no trust, you have no relationship with them, you're like, whatever, man, you don't know nothing. But when you have that trusted relationship with someone that you're saying, look, I know that I don't know everything. I'm looking for you to help me see what I can't see, and I trust you. Now, when that person says, Jay, dude, you say you want this, but you're doing everything opposite of that. That might have just been in your blind spot. You're like, holy shit, you're right, man. That's the value of a coach. And everyone can benefit from coaching.
Kevin, someone that's listening to this wants to connect with you, test your magic.
Yeah.
Fastest way to get in touch with you.
Fastest way is to email me at kevin@lifewizardcoach.com. Kevin@lifewizardcoach.com. They can connect with me on LinkedIn. Kevin Fink, Fink. I think my LinkedIn tag also says, something about Life Wizard. Um, Facebook. If you want to be my friend on Facebook, I'll just warn you. My personal Facebook page is not for everybody. But I also have a Life Wizard Facebook page that you can connect with. But yeah, email me, connect with me through social media, and would love to chat and see what we can do. I actually have a newsletter also
Yeah.
that I put out periodically. I just put my most recent one out yesterday. It was called Make Them Laugh, Make Them Laugh, Make Them Laugh. And it talks about how I created where my humor came from. It came from being bullied. My dad was somewhat of an emotional and verbal bully at home. And what I figured out very early on was that if I could make him laugh, he couldn't yell at me and laugh at the same time. And so I tell my story there. But if you want to sign up for my newsletter, just send me an email at Kevin@LifeWizardCoach and just say newsletter, and I'd be happy to add you to the newsletter list and connect that way as well.
Kevin, thank you so much. If you're listening to this, stay tuned for hopefully part two. We barely scraped the surface of this iceberg. Share this with a friend that needs to rethink their their masks, their vulnerabilities, their finances, their wizardry, their inner circle, their board of advisors, their coaches and mentors. Share this with a friend. Leave us a review on the Culture Matters podcast. Connect with Kevin, and we will see you next time. Thank you, my friend.
Welcome, brother. I hope to be on again.